the music industry isn't always what you think it is. I mean, me and Maddy have been through a lot of shit in our time, a lot of good times, but we've seen a lot of shit. And we got a couple of requests to say, let's hear the Burstimo story about how you guys started. I don't think this is going to be a video that's going to get like a huge amount of views. The algorithm will not pick it up. But for our existing audience who are curious and wanted to hear about the industry in terms of the good and the bad and the characters that we've met in the industry and how to navigate the industry and how we did it, we thought we'd just quickly do a video and tell the story. So where would you like to start, Maddy?
Should we start right at the beginning about like how we met and what we were doing to sort of come across each other and start what this is?
It's a bit of we always say we're a strange two people to come together and meet.
I mean, when we first met, I don't think we even liked each other.
Yeah,
I was basically a child.
Yes, you couldn't legally drink when we met.
Yes,
which is strange.
That's crazy.
I first met you. We met at another marketing company. It was very traditional, very old school industry. And yeah, you were a blog writer.
So yeah, I was hired as a copywriter. So writing press releases, writing any copy the artist needed, and very quickly got bored of that and wanted to know what was going on in the PR world. Whereas you were hired on the digital side.
I was primarily social media. I did have experience already from working at other music management companies on the social media side of things. I very much valued social media.
Yeah, whereas my side was the connection with the artist. I worked very close with artists prior to that job, and I was in journalism. So we had two very different sides. Both of us had worked in music and both of us had sort of worked with people in music. But this was our first proper job because before management was an internship.
Well, I started an internship,
So yeah, we met each other, I'd say, about 6 years ago now.
Yeah, about that. And I would say your area was more valued than mine at that time.
100%.
So I was doing social media. I was doing the Instagram ads. I was doing the content. I was doing basically all of the content for the artists. You were doing more the writing and the blog side of things, where it's been interesting in this past couple of years to see the completely transition now with the likes of TikTok.
Yeah.
And now we only do social media primarily.
What I found fascinating at the time is, so we were doing PR for artists, so we would find what their angle was and take them to media. And this company was very traditional in the way of the overall aim was always national news. So whatever angle we could find, we took it to national news, even if the angle was hilarious. And I won't lie, there was a lot of hilarious angles which did make national news.
We probably can't mention, but yeah.
Nope.
Yeah.
But what would happen is your knowledge would be like an add-on. It would be like, by the way, we do have a guy in-house that does like some social media stuff. Do you want it? And I'd say 99% of the time artists would be like, no, get me on national news. Which is so ironic now because, I mean, our business is focused on social media and digital. And I'd say that the PR side of stuff is actually more of an add-on. So it's swapped completely.
So we ended up bonding due to our love of food.
Always.
You like these white chocolate tiramisus, which you introduced me to
from
Waitrose. And then we shared white chocolate tiramisus at lunchtime.
How romantic.
And that is how we essentially got talking and became friends. From then on, we said, you know, we can do this better, can't we? We're looking at what artists are needing to be able to blow their career up. And we looked at all of the companies out there that were offering it. If we Googled like music marketing, music PR, things like that, and every single company, we thought, wow, what a load of shite there is out there. They haven't got a clue what they're doing. They're doing blogs and they're doing radio, but they're doing like pointless radio stations.
Community radio stations
which
with
have
2
3 listeners. It was completely pointless. So we said, okay, we can do it better. And then I discovered a way of getting tracks onto Spotify playlists. And that was by befriending the befriending the curators on Facebook by matching their name on Spotify with their Facebook and find them on Facebook and shooting them a DM. Now, being a big, intimidating, bald guy with a beard.
I forgot you did this. This was like the most DIY thing ever.
This is so DIY, borderline illegal. Being the kind of guy I am, it's not very approachable. And, you know, there's different advantages and disadvantages of who you are in life, and this was a huge disadvantage to me. So what I did was started making profiles of fake people, but more approachable people, and more endearing people, shall we say. And then...
Nice way of putting it.
Yeah, nice way of putting it. And then suddenly we started getting at it, artists adding to these major user-curated playlists, generating hundreds of thousands of streams for the artists, getting them on Discover Weekly, or by just a few playlist ads on some legit playlists. So from then on, we thought, well, that's it. Like, none of the companies are doing this. The company we are isn't really valuing this. Mm-hmm. Why don't we just do our own thing? So we both left the company, and then...
Which was, can I admit, terrifying.
Yeah, it was a terrifying experience.
Going in on something that you have no idea if it's going to work, you have no reputation in the business, no one even knows your name, and we had no clients, like absolutely nothing. So we were just like, fuck it, let's do it.
And
we did.
It was crazy. And then you came on board to do still more press, radio. I remember you had some really good... unique contacts in the industry. I'm thinking like your
Love
sync
Island
side of things.
I think for me, one of the main reasons that I was frustrated in my job was I would get what an artist would see as like their dream press. So an enemy premiere for a music video. The next day, I would go onto the music video like, ooh, I wonder how well it's done, and it'd be like 200 views. So for me, my work felt pointless. If it was helping an artist and helping them grow, I'd be like, cool, this is amazing. But really, I think it wasn't getting them what they wanted to achieve, and definitely press is a stepping stone. So we wanted to still keep that, but it wasn't doing much else. So we had to get creative. So I found myself still working in PR, still working at getting music into the right people's laps, but less so focusing purely on blogs. So I worked a lot with Sync. So we got a few placements on Love Island. We got a few placements on Made in Chelsea. And if you're not in the UK, both of those are massive. Then we
like sort of Jersey Shore kind of vibe, isn't it?
Then I worked with really randomly came across this. It's TV stations on planes. So it would be like specific channels on aeroplanes.
Gyms as well, wasn't it?
Yeah. And gyms and in-store. So say there was like a shopping mall, there might be a big screen and music videos we played on that. And I got some huge placements for completely unsigned independent artists with basically no audience, and their music videos just getting placed all across the globe.
And that affected their Shazams as well. Shazam was very key at that point as well.
So that was super effective for us, and we did find it useful, but it was another example of there was only so many spots. So there may be 20 spots on this aeroplane's channel, but they're going to put 18 of those spots for well-known artists. So it just wasn't doable to take on the artists that we wanted to take on and get them great results. And I think throughout the first year of our company, we started to explore more different ways of promoting artists. And I think that's when your background really came in handy as well.
And do you want to talk more about like getting those clients? Because
that was rough.
We worked for Borderline free at that point.
I think one of them I went in at like 50 quid. And then I think it made it up to 200, and it slowly started to work its way up when we actually got a reputation. What I would do to try and get artists to work with us was, I was big into like indie rock, indie pop music. That was like what I absolutely loved at the time. And I'd say now we're a lot more eclectic with our tastes, but at the time that was all I wanted to work with because I just loved it. And I'd go through my Discover Weekly, I'd go through any sort of algorithmic playlist specific to me, and I'd reach out to those artists and be like, you're incredible. why are you not doing better? Let's work together. And I mean, I would send hundreds of emails and probably get like 5% even replying, because if someone's reaching out to you, you think, oh, they just want my money. But at the time, we didn't want their money. We just wanted to build case studies. And from doing that, those artists that we worked with,
huge success.
One was signed to Ultra Music on millions and millions of streams. Another was signed to an independent label, Scruff of the Neck, has supported some huge names. Who else have we worked with from like the early stages? Hanny as well.
Who were on the podcast.
Yeah, we've had them on the podcast. They've now gone their separate ways, but as independent artists themselves are doing incredibly well. Annie recently played guitar on Justin Bieber's track. So all of those artists that we started with, looking at now, because we did that work for either extremely cheap or free, it was totally worth it, because we were able to use their names to get to where we are now, where we're working with major label artists.
Sorry to interrupt. Recently, Kabichi just got signed, did you say?
True. Yeah, they worked with IE Management for a while as well, but they've just been signed. There's just been tons that we had in those early stages that were very successful. Lavengro, they signed with Billie Eilish's booking agent, recently supported Boyzone.
Nice.
Solid.
Yeah.
So there's been loads, and all of those were from our beginning stages where we had no credibility, no name, but we did it for cheap or free, and we were able to build those case studies, and that gave us the leverage to be able to go to bigger artists and have a bit of a name for ourselves.
So I'd say that the challenges in the industry primarily for us at this point were the amount of speculation and lack of guarantees within our service, and we were very upfront about that. I just knocked the microphone there, I think. We were very upfront about that in terms of results aren't guaranteed. So all of our progress of a company is like, how do we reduce the variation of speculation from project to project? And then we ended up going through Spotify and taking all of those user curated playlists and contacted them and say, hey, look, we pitch to you a lot. And then we started getting closer relationships with them in terms of running competitions and rewarding them for buying part of our overall network and receiving tracks from us. So it was kind of like Submit Hub, but a little bit less work involved for them. And I think the rewards were a lot better. Therefore, that meant that we had a lot more responses for the submissions, and the results were fantastic. At that time, we were getting millions of streams for Discover Weekly and artists who got accepted onto those playlists, and a lot of them did.
Yeah. Can I just note as well, like, that space was untouched.
Yeah.
So this was 4 years ago. People didn't really pitch to playlists. They didn't realize user curated playlists affected your streams, but also the algorithm. So it was an untouched space, and that's why I think we were able to build our name in that space and build our name in the industry. I think playlisting actually gave us that. We'll talk about later on about why we aren't so focused in that space anymore, but it gave us our start, and yeah, that was absolutely amazing. But I think after a while, we realized that there were more spaces that we could be marketing artists and more ways to be promoting them.
Something I also was thinking that so at this point, we've come from working from traditional kind of crusty industry all the way to starting our own thing, which is unique and is getting results. But in order to get experience in the industry, there's a lot of people out there, and I imagine they are listening to this podcast and wondering how to get those jobs that we had, to even get them started and even get them in the industry to be able to learn it. And it got me thinking about how the different people you can work for and whether to work for free. For example, would you work for free now if you were starting from the beginning?
From the beginning?
Yep.
Yeah, still. 100%.
Yep.
100%.
I think I would as well. If I wanted to start building a reputation. There is also a general reputation for people in the industry who are taking advantage of people, whether it's low paid or whether they've got to do overtime for what they do. looking back, I would say that the people that I've worked for now, I would say they're not necessarily taking advantage of people. It's just your perception of when you leave or you start to get in a role with what you've accepted. You end up feeling like you are undervalued, underpaid, but it is the nature of the industry and what you have accepted. So you've got these old school people in the industry who've had a huge amount of success, and they get probably about 10 CVs every day knocking on their door, and then one of them was you and one of them they took you on. And I feel like it's important for you to be able to know when to move on and not stay too long at these places, but also understand it from the smaller companies' point of view, where they can easily bring in the next you. It's up to you to have to move on, to find your next step, rather than looking back and saying, well, I should be paid more. I've done a 50-hour week this week, and I've done this and this. It is up to you, and not looking back at the industry in the way it is.
Yeah.
It's up to you to move on, and that will, by nature, increase the pay, increase your working environment.
Yeah, and I also think if you're thinking, oh, I'm not getting paid, I'm not doing this, are you adding value to that company, or are you just doing your job? If you're doing your job, cool, like you're getting your paycheck, you're working your hours, you're going home. If you're like really going out of your way to help it grow, and then you're not rewarded, yeah, then that's time to leave. But if you are going out of your way, if you're working for someone decent and they recognize that, they will reward you. I mean, in our first job working together, we loved what we did, so we did go out of our way. I remember working late. I remember working from home. I remember coming up with different concepts, getting involved in every side of the company to add value wherever I could. And I know you did the exact same thing. So if you want to do it, you will. But if you're not rewarded, leave. And that's exactly what we did.
Focus on your key skills. So you can trade your time for money. And that's fine. That's how you get started, and that's how you live. But concentrate on your skills and using this opportunity that you have to be able to say, okay, I don't know how to do Twitter ads. I'm going to explore it with this artist, and then start understanding how to do that, for example. Your skills in the industry are what gets you paid more. That is your value. A lot of people make the mistake of thinking you need industry experience because that's what they say on the job application, the job adverts.
Yeah.
So when you have those skills, that is why when you look at the LinkedIns of people at the major labels, they haven't necessarily had a full music background. We've had people on the podcast who have come from a commercial background, but because they have the skills and they have that reputation, they don't necessarily need that experience because they have the transferable skills. So I think it is a bit of a myth needing pure music industry experience for many, many years, because there are only so many skills that you can develop.
Yeah, and I think that kind of leads us nicely into like our team and why we hired who we hired. So we had our first employee at 5 months in,
Something like that. Yeah.
and she's still with us to this day.
Yeah.
Absolute legend. She knows the company like the back of her hand, like better than, literally the same as we do. And that hiring process was very unique to us. We've never had to hire anyone before. We've never had to know why we want to hire someone. But I think for us, what we look for is drive, passion, but a genuine individual. And I think most people don't think that that's important in a job interview. But for us, and I know many others, it's key.
Yeah.
It's one of the most important things.
I'd say also self-drive to improve yourself in some way is what we look for. How in some way have you gone outside the box, and not necessarily in a music side of things, but we've got one person did their own radio show, one person sold their own one of our graphic designers did the plate ceramics and designed their own plates and sold them at a fair on a weekend. And we had one person who simply the job advert went down And they decided to email in saying, is this still available? And we thought kind of going that extra mile and pushing yourself, you can't teach that. You can't tell someone to do that. It's something that's kind of innate ability.
Yeah.
And then, her task as well, I remember, was to create an Instagram ad for us. And she did it on her phone.
Yeah.
And we were like, how did you make a full Instagram ad, animated and everything on your phone? But she did, and then went on to learn other skills and other things as the job grew. And I think we look for that more so than like what kind of music you like, and how many festivals you've been to.
Yeah, it's of course you gotta love music, but I'd say most of the people in the world love music.
Yeah, they do.
So it doesn't make you unique. I think for us it was very much, we get so many applications every day. People saying, I really love music, or I got a degree in music business, and it's like, cool, okay, I'm going to give you this artist. What would you do for them on TikTok? And they have no idea, because it's how your brain kind of works, like how creative you are, how much content you consume. And for us, it's whoever applies that has that. And a perfect example is a guy that's with us now. He's been with us for a little over a year, maybe longer now. And he was super nervous in the interview, but then started saying that one of his hobbies is Football Manager. And I saw Alex's eyes light up.
I love
he was
Football
like,
Manager.
This guy's got to be a genius then, because everyone that loves Football Manager is a legend. And they started talking more, and you saw passion coming through. And it's obviously a very logical game. Got to be quite strategic with it. And the way he spoke about that was like, cool, you'd be really good at ads, actually.
Yeah.
Because if you like that side of things, maybe you'd be interested in this. And it's finding those sort of raw people that want to learn and get involved, and that doesn't necessarily mean having years of industry experience. It's just showing that you want to learn and showing that you have a passionate personality.
For that, it was Football Manager, if you're familiar with it, is literally a game where you press spacebar and watch numbers go up. You watch numbers go up and down the whole time. Players get better on their ratings, scores up and down. And that's very much like it is for the job of running Instagram ads and TikTok ads and YouTube ads. You've got to find a way to manipulate those numbers to make them go up and down how you want, and test them. And if that's not for you, then you're going to hate the job. So that was essentially why we thought that was a good asset.
Yeah, and I think it's fair to say we've also had people that haven't fitted. And that's completely normal. I mean, as a business, I think we work very differently. Everything's pretty relaxed, and we really push for everyone to be as creative as possible, even if that means something doesn't work. And we're not very music industry.
No, we try and avoid that very, very much so.
We're not cool.
Because we're not a music company, we're a marketing company.
Yeah. And it just so happens our clients are musicians.
Yes.
And I think that's sometimes not people's style. They want to work in music and be at all the events and going to all the festivals backstage. And it's like, that stuff's cool, but marketing's cool. That's more of what we're about.
Doesn't progress the company because you've been to see the latest artist.
Yeah.
So going back to the playlisting side of things as well, I mean, that industry got dirty.
Quick as well.
Quick. Yeah, so I had my own little, I reckon I had around 300 curators who I just email out tracks and they come back to me with a yes or no. It was brilliant. And the streams were not huge, but it didn't matter. It was enough to trigger the algorithm. And then along came people who recognized there was a demand for this. And then these branded user-curated playlists came along where they started selling spots directly onto those playlists. And I thought, well, that's okay. I mean, they won't get the streams, whatever. Maybe they got fake followers. It doesn't matter. I've got my own little network here with my Discover Weekly side of things. So, but it went down a dark hole where they realized that artists were complaining they weren't getting the streams from being on these playlists, and they've paid directly to be on them. So what they did was started running fake streams and fake bots through their playlist to justify the price that the artist has paid and the number of streams that the artist expected for their money. And
keep them on there so they keep paying.
Exactly. Which the issue that caused us was, one, we were seeing my little network of playlists being kind of like pulled, and they were either drawn to that dirty side of the industry, or the playlist was bought, the account was just bought outright, or we couldn't get the numbers to match the fake ones. And artists were working with one fake company, destroying their profile, coming to us, me saying we'll get Discover Weekly, not getting Discover Weekly, looking at the stats, they used a fake company, and it's absolutely destroyed the algorithm for them. So that was, I'd say that was the lowest point at Burstimo for us, because we were like, how can we keep helping independent artists when all of these fakers are out there, and we just refuse to pitch them, refuse to go. And we got bitten a few times. We pitched to a couple, and they put the artist on, ran fake streams through the artist, but we didn't know at that time. Then we'll put it tell the artist they got added to it. Then a month later, we'll be like, do you want to stay on the playlist? It's $50 a month, and we're like, oh, that's what that was all about. So
and I remember
that was
vividly,
a minefield.
We just moved into, this was our second office. Our first office was literally a shoebox, but our second office, which was actually a space, and if you followed us on Instagram, you would have known that space. It was like the big pink building, and we loved that space, but we just moved there. We just hired our second or third person, so the pressure was on. Like, how are we going to make money? How are we going to still promote artists? How are we going to do this legitimately? And for us, we were terrified. But what was happening in the background is we were starting to explore digital marketing a bit more in the way of social media strategies, social media ads. And we'd been doing this either free of charge or very cheaply for a few artists, just to gain a bit of knowledge, but also create case studies once again. And luckily we had that in place so that we could step back slightly. Yeah,
we did. We kind of put the playlisting on ice for probably 6 months to a year.
And that was scary, because what did we have? But we had the social media side of things, and we were able to move across while still doing the PR, the sync stuff, getting things in the spaces that we wanted it to, but social media, and we went really heavy on that, and we experimented with tons of things just to learn as much as possible.
Yeah, and we managed to progress that to a stage where obviously we'd learned ourselves how to grow YouTube channels, Instagram accounts, watching our artists grow, and we were learning how to get streams. But we had, I'd say, because of the size of our YouTube channel, we had an incredible opportunity in a sense where we could access a lot of artists quickly, and that meant that it was a big asset for us to be able to grow something amazing. So I remember vividly, we went to a few label meetings, and we were talking about creative strategies that we'd done, and obviously we were either working with a label or the label was considering working with us, and they were saying to us, well, to be honest, we don't work with marketing agencies anymore. We work directly with those who own the assets. So they've got a YouTube channel or a Facebook page, say like a independent artist discovery Facebook page. We will pay them to put the artist on there. So we kind of thought after that, we were like, that's it. That's the answer. We no longer become a pitching company. And then we went to look at the likes of Gary Vaynerchuk, who were buying out big brands like, is it Pure Wow? Pure Wow that he bought? Big brands who already had an influence, and he was doing that. And Stephen Bartlett, who was doing that with his social chain. And he was doing that, and we thought, that's it. Like, that's the future. We've got the experience above anybody else in the music industry to be able to create these brands for people who want to discover independent artists. But we just have to get them started. So we started creating those brands. We did mood boards. We did lots of different testing with different names, different vibes, different brands. And eventually we just saw what worked. So we started very small, just with YouTube channels, Facebook pages, Instagram accounts, and Spotify playlists. And we used all of the data we'd collected from many, many years of promoting artists, and knowing that we're able to channel all of these users that we have through these new digital assets. So it took a long time. And I remember I had this idea a year prior, and I created a Spotify playlist, which was, we had a Scottish band we were working with, and it was like Best of Scotland. And I did exactly the same thing, and I started promoting it to Scotland only, thinking every artist is going to want, every person in Scotland is going to want to hear what the best new Scottish artists were. And it tanked. It turned out nobody cares where an artist is from, whether they're local.
Yeah.
They want to hear the best music. So that was a mistake on my part. And
it was a learning experience, though. And it meant that we didn't have to waste our time and money this time around on doing those things.
Mm-hmm. And the mistake I did was give up too early on that. I was onto something big.
We've been doing this now. We've been growing these assets for over a year. A little over a year and a half, maybe even now.
Yeah.
And we've invested every single penny that we possibly can.
Like, we're talking like well into six figures.
Yeah, it's huge. We've invested everything we can because we see the potential in this.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad we have, because now we're in a position where we've got something huge. And watching these artists come in and leave with something that we only take on artists that their music's good quality. We see potential there. So coming in, I'm like, I can guarantee this. I can guarantee this amount of streams, this amount of growth, this amount of DMs are going to come through to your profile because you've worked with us. And that's the best feeling in the world, because I can confidently say we have something that no one in this industry has, and it's the best quality marketing service you could ever get. And like, that's mind-blowing to me.
Do you know what's so frustrating sometimes is the artists don't tell us when they get DMs.
I know.
But it's something we can't measure because we don't really ask for access to your Instagram itself. Sometimes if we're added to the Facebook page, which is linked to the Instagram, we do see DMs.
Yeah.
However, maybe 6 months later, they'll say, yeah, I got loads of DMs and I got loads of opportunities from it and I built loads of fans. And we don't see it because obviously if you're working with a marketing agency, you expect that, but it's a nice measure.
It is.
It's 100% the best measure of a success of a campaign if you're getting real people DMing you, because it's quantifiable.
Yeah, I remember I got an email from someone that had worked with us, like honestly, like 6-8 months ago, and it was just like they wanted to work with us again, and they were like, oh, just so you know, I still get DMs to this day because of the placement on one of your assets. And it's like, that's nuts, because if you got an article in Enemy, you wouldn't be getting DMs 8 months later saying, I saw you on Enemy. Like, it's the viewers aren't there. So I think it's absolutely incredible, and to get to this point and have the team we have now, everything is in place to get where we want to get eventually, which do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, we want to be the biggest the most influential marketing agency in the world, and now looking back, so well, going back to the playlist, essentially what we do is we keep the data from everyone who's listened and present the artist to those. So if you've listened to one of our playlists, you will get an ad for one of the artists on that playlist, maybe two of the artists on that playlist, and we can now guarantee a certain number of streams. We can also, we worked out the stat, but about 95% of the artists we work with are Discover Weekly triggered now, which
and
means
like 99 are algorithmic triggered, so at least one of the algorithmic playlists is triggered. Yeah,
so you're almost guaranteed now for Discover Weekly, and that those streams don't necessarily come through when you're working with us. Once it's triggered, they tend to come through just gradually over the course of a year. Get anywhere between 100,000 streams to 1 million streams on that track. It just depends on Discover Weekly. That's kind of out of our hands at that point. And then we're constantly looking for the creative side of things. So streams are nothing, really. Streams are just that initial awareness of you as an artist. They're not the defining thing as you as an artist. What you are as an artist is what people fall in love with, what they engage with, what they connect with. So therefore, we need something else, and that is what the rest of the team do. So we've got the team who are constantly researching and developing those assets, making sure they are the best they can possibly be, and getting the artist as many streams or views as possibly can. Then you've got the other side of the company, which is looking at how do you take this new audience and make them fall in love with you. And then they create all of these strategies to work with the artist to be able to create a brand and content where people connect.
Yeah. And that's where like giving all of our staff the ability to be creative and never like, oh no, that's not right, has come in handy for this service now, because they're not scared to suggest something. With TikTok, which is probably what we really, I'd say is probably the thing we specialize in now in regards to all the social media platforms, there's not a stupid suggestion. So the fact that everyone feels comfortable enough to come in and be like, I've got this idea, sounds a little bit nuts, but hear me out. And that could be the video that goes viral. And over the past 2.5 years now, we've seen some amazing things happen because of our strategies. We worked with an artist where she came to us with 400 followers, completely unknown, ended at the end of the 6 weeks, I'm going to say, campaign with 250K on TikTok. And like, that was 6 weeks. So the potential on that platform, due to like our strategies and the creativity with the team, is just incredible. And I love that side of the business, that we're able to offer that, because it can be anyone of any size. There are artists out there that are absolutely huge, have hundreds of millions of streams, but no presence on social media, so they're not really getting the ticket sales.
I'd say that is also where we're going to be working with as well, in terms of helping artists develop that side who already have the streams as well.
Yeah.
If they don't necessarily need a boost on Spotify, say you're on all the officials,
Yeah.
doesn't mean you're going to get Instagram followers or fans showing up to your show. So making sure that we're hot on that side of the business now.
Yeah. And educating them as well. It's
a lot of that is
crazy
about that.
how many artists just lack the knowledge. And of course, you're an artist. You're not a social media guru, but you do need someone sort of holding your hand, because if you want to be creating the content yourself, which you should as an artist, you don't really want to be paying someone else to just post stuff. You need advice. And the amount of artists we've spoken to that are incredibly successful but have no clue, like absolutely no clue. Like they'll be uploading TikTok videos that aren't in the right dimensions. They'll be uploading like 30-second YouTube videos saying, pre-save my track to win something. Like it's the same stuff on repeat. So I think we'll be spending the next couple of years as well helping those artists and providing our knowledge and seeing where that takes us.
And if you followed our content a lot before, we're very reserved on plugging our company and what we do. So I feel like this podcast is like, we can't help it becoming a half an hour plus ad for our
it does
company.
sound
It's
like
a
an ad,
massive
doesn't
plug.
it? People have asked for it, though. They're genuinely intrigued.
They have,
so.
yeah. And one of the things I wanted to touch on was what I mentioned at the start of the podcast, in terms of the fact that what you're getting at other companies now. I genuinely don't think there's another company out there where I'm like, people DM us, we say we're fully booked or the artist isn't quite what we're looking for.
Yeah.
They ask for an alternative, and I have no idea. I don't know anyone else I can recommend, and that's because all they want to do is pitch you to blogs and pitch you to like so far sounds and random places and get rejection emails, and you don't even know if
they're real.
They even sent it. Did they even have the contact there? I always say that with other companies, it's like it's fake and crap until proven good.
Yeah.
Because that's my assumption in this industry, because you can't guarantee results for everybody. It's not like you're a car mechanic where you can fix the car. I know, I've done this before, and you're going to drive away. You don't know what the results are going to be.
Yeah.
So therefore, artists get taken advantage of in that situation, because you get sent a report, you don't know whether it's been sent, you don't know if the company is legitimate or not. You don't know if you're taking you seriously. You don't even know if your music is good enough, because they've told you that your music is good enough. And I feel like from now on, the industry needs to change in that sense, where, like the label suggested, work directly with those who have their own assets. There's no point pitching. If you get it right and if you get the streams, that those assets are, those media companies like the So Far Sounds are going to want you on anyway. You'll get an email saying, do you want to come on? and do a performance, and you end up being that headline artist for the event for the other artists that got pitched. So it all starts to happen organically when you start to get the ball rolling.
Yeah. And I mean, when we work with an artist, we send them sort of proof of how we've grown these things, because a lot of the time they're like, yeah, but I can work with Steve up the road that's done this, and Steve up the road is so fake. But so it's great that we're seeing artists sort of questioning those things now, but it's definitely not enough in a way of, if you work with a company and they're offering you this, you need to understand what they're really offering and why it's going to be beneficial to you, because there are certainly so many things that can help your ego and can help you feel successful. But if it's not actually getting listeners, not actually getting viewers, getting people in front of you, proof that they're actual human beings, then it's pointless. Absolutely pointless. I think a good place to end it on is kind of noting the fact that we started with literally no contacts and no money. I mean, to this day, we've actually only spent £10 of like our own money on this company, and that £10 was spent on a website. That was our initial investment.
Was a Wix or Squarespace or Wix.
I don't know if we went halves on that, did we?
No, you still owe me for that.
Ah, damn it. Okay. So he literally spent £10 on that website, and to this day we haven't had to like invest in that because of everything we've sort of done to grow this to grow the business. But I think it's key to say there aren't people sort of getting in your way, and I think people use that as an excuse constantly. So it's, I couldn't get that job because of this person, I couldn't get into this side of the business because there's gatekeepers, and even artists will say there's gatekeepers, so that's why I can't do this.
There's so many people in the industry who are talking about like gatekeepers and people who how it's such a hard industry to get into the music industry. I actually think it's one of the easiest to get into. You can find an artist out there that you like, reach out to them and say, hey, do you need some help doing this, this, and this? These are the skills that I've got. Maybe you can maybe over-exaggerate what your skills are. You can learn them as you go, and then help them out. If you connect with them, you end up becoming their manager, and then you build your skills from there. Suddenly your job application goes from person who loves music to person who's actually done it. And if you listen to the podcast with Chelsea Wood, she did exactly the same thing. She started with her local bands, and then she went on to be the manager of Nina Nesbitt, who went on to get millions, if not billions, of streams. Therefore, I think that the answer for getting into the music industry is start. If you want to become a social media, if you want to work in social media in the music industry, start an Instagram account which specializes in music and find new music. Figure out how you're going to grow that. If you can't figure it out, then you weren't going to be an asset for the company that's employing you. There's not enough big companies in this industry to be able to teach you, to take you on for an internship and tell you what you need to do. And the chances are, by the time that they teach you that thing, it's irrelevant now anyway, because they've just told you about Musical.ly and how we should probably watch that thing. And then by the time they've taught you that, TikTok's come along. So you need to already establish yourself. And if you have a YouTube account, an Instagram account with 10,000 followers or subscribers, which are all people who are looking to discover new music or anything, or interviews with bands, or quotes from interviews where you watch interviews with bands and you make a little quote on Instagram, and then people start to follow that because they like the bite-sized type of content. Or you do take like a blog and then you start making the blog into more bite-sized Instagram stories, anything like that, then you're going to learn as you do, as you go. If you want to become a manager and you want to be in the tour and booking world, then go and get a band some gigs, which is what Chelsea did. Go and get them some local gigs, because they don't have the time to do it. To be honest, a lot of artists like to stick with the music anyway. They hate that side of the industry. So there is no gatekeepers in the industry.
And labels aren't the only jobs.
Yes, exactly.
So if you go for a job with a major label,
not the most well-paid jobs either.
No. So you go for an internship with a major label. Honestly, there's like thousands of people that applied for that, and they'll pick the one with the most experience who probably shouldn't have been an intern anyway and should have been in a higher paid job. So, and then everyone's like, oh my God, there's so many gatekeepers, the industry, I can never get into it. And it's like, you went for one job with like thousands of other people going for it. If you got to a place where you had the experience, you would honestly have a major label contacting you. Like, I remember when we started the business, I'd applied for a job at a label and I didn't get it.
Yeah.
And I know now why. Because I was half an hour late, even though I called in advance saying I'm stuck in traffic. I said I'm stuck in traffic. I'm going to be really late. I apologize. We can reorganize if it's easier for you. And they're like, no, it's fine. Got there. I ended up meeting the girl that worked there a couple of years later, and she was like, yeah, you didn't get the job because you were late. We do have a job available now if you want it. And I'm like, that's what I mean, where if you get to a position where you can add value, people will want you in their companies, and anyone can do that. If you find that if you just basically teach yourself new things, you make yourself knowledgeable, you'll be in demand.
Yeah. Start now.
Yeah. Inspiring. Good place to end it.
Yep.
I hope you enjoyed the video, or if you're listening, the podcast, and make sure to leave it a review because we've got a few already, which we're really thankful for. And if you're watching on YouTube, make sure to subscribe.
Positive review.
Oh, yeah, positive review.
Yeah,
positive review.
we're not thankful for the negative one.
No, we're not.
No.
That's not nice. But thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.